Welcome back to 3-Day Weekend. I am working on the Pro XP. We had an issue with the transmission making a really high-pitched whining sound, like this. And we're trying to fix that. The machine sits over here with no transmission in it. And I haven't been able to work on it because we're waiting on parts. And then this one broke. So I don't know, the worst thing about having a transmission on your workbench is having a second transmission on the workbench. I've already built this one. This is for the Ace 570, different video for that. So by the time you're seeing this, that should already be back in. But today we're working on that. I have some new gears, some new bearings, and we're gonna put it back together today. So let's get to it. Parts. Big old box of OEM parts. I know there are other solutions available, like the Sandcraft bearing seal kits. There's all that kind of stuff, but this is kind of an experiment. And truth be told, the Pro XP transmission is not really that hard to get out. So we're going to focus on the input side. I didn't have any other issues, so I'm not going to do a full-blown replace everything, bearing, seals. I just want to fix the noise. Which is going to be on the either the input or the reverse shaft over here. It's one of these things. So I have the parts to rebuild those. We're going to start with that and see if I can get this noise to go away. I have a different reverse shaft and some of the main gears here. This is what you would replace if you did a gear reduction. And a special shout out to Gene. You are my hero. Thank you so much. He sent me these, which he says only has a few rides, 100, 200 miles, something. They're low mileage, and that will save me from purchasing all brand new of those, especially just for an experiment. So I'm already ahead of the game, but I went ahead and ordered the bearings that these go on and the rest of everything that's going on, especially up here. Okay, we have a brand new input shaft and bearings and this thing. So yeah, we have a lot of parts. I think the best way to tackle this is, why don't I just pick a shaft? Let's say the input shaft, and let's take everything off of the input shaft and put what we need. No, that's the reverse shaft. Okay, yeah. Let's start with the input shaft. I do have a new input shaft. There it is, and it comes with some bearing or some gears on it. So really, all I need to worry about are bearings. But I figure we'll do it one shaft at a time. You know, while I was just looking at it, I noticed it has a little line right there, and on the race for it, is that right? Where's my finger? What the heck? There, right there. Does that look like a spot or something, maybe? I don't know if that was, maybe I had a bearing failure starting to happen. I don't feel excessive play in it, but I don't know. But instead of just pressing these on the new one, I'm going to take these bearings off the old one to make sure there aren't any shims or anything in between there. Like that one, I don't think there's, but we're just going to press those off. We're going to be spending a lot of time on the press. And you're gonna see me using this fine Harbor Freight bearing puller. This one mostly. That reaches right in there and gets your bearings. Works really well, especially when accompanied with this. Here we go. There are no snap rings or anything on that, so it's just a matter of pressing it out. Catching it on the bottom, so if there is something, it doesn't fall. Okay. There we go. There's nothing in there. Bearing just sits right down on that, so it's flush with the top. All right. Well, now we know that one. Let's see if we can get this one pulled. I had to switch to the big one for this one. There we are. We have a shaft with no bearings. Just really looking at this bearing. I don't know. It seems okay to me. But there's no gap or spacer or washer or anything, so we can just press the new one right in. We're ready to press the big one on. I have these pushed right up tight, so I'm supporting it by the inner race. I don't like to put all that pressure on the outer race if I can help it. And they have logos, well, not logos, but the part number on the outside. I make that face out, so it could be seen if I have to take it apart again. So like that one, the letters are facing that way. On that one, they're facing that way. There's one. It looks magnificent. Ooh, this is going to be tricky. Might have to lower the press for this one. I found a socket that's just right, so I can push on the inner race, but the shaft will go up inside, even though the shaft is going to end flush, so it shouldn't really matter, but better safe than sorry, right? Perfect. The input shaft is done. Next up is the idler gear, which just has two little bearings pressed on each side. So I got a new one of those. New bearings for each side. I don't know, I think I might get greedy on this one, just try to press them all at the same time, because they end up flush. Let's give it a try. I'm just gonna touch it with a socket. Just make sure it's seated top and bottom. It looks pretty good, but I just want to be certain. Oh, that went down just a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Good. I just don't. You don't want to sit too tight, you know. That looks perfect. That looks perfect. And I will say this feels very loose versus this feels very tight. Not very tight, but snug. I can't move it up and down. This one I can absolutely move it up and down. So I think I was having some bearing failure at 20, well, it's got almost 2,700 miles on it now. But when I started, it only had, probably had a close to 2, maybe just over 2 when I first noticed the sound. Look at this. I was just looking at that bearing. Will it focus that close? It should. There's grooves on that bearing outer raceway, just like on the other one. I don't like that. Don't like that one bit. Glad we put a new one in here. I picked this shaft next. We're gonna save the reverse shaft for last. It's the most complicated. I have a new gear for right here since I'm replacing it on the reverse shaft. This one's gonna stay. I'm not doing anything from here forward. So this is the last one in the series. I have new bearings for it too, so I'm gonna pop these bearings off. And we have a snap ring, looks like, before we press that gear off. Let's get the bearings off of it first. Now later, it's gonna come up. I noticed that shaft is not flush with this bearing like it was on the other shafts. That one is down just a little bit. That's a Koyo. There's a lot of Koyo bearings in here. Everyone's whining about the bearings, but I don't don't know, in my book, Koyos are good bearings. This bearing is so big, my big puller doesn't fit with all of the bolts all the way in. So this will be tricky. I gotta get this guy off of there. There's a snap ring. Snap rings are always fun. Ah! This one has a washer. The washers go on the snap ring side. If you ever pull a snap ring, there's probably a washer. Okay, we throw that in the press and push that guy off there. The shoulder goes down on this one. Here we go. Let's go throw that washer back on and our snap ring. That's the absolute limit of these goofy pliers. Oh, but I got it. That snapped right in perfect. Awesome. Awesome. Over at the press. Let's get these bearings put on here. Perfect. I put the labels out on these ones too. So that shaft is done. Last one is the reverse shaft. Looks like we can divide it in two. We can do everything this side and then do everything that side. So I'll start on this side and we're looking at a bearing, one of these, and then this, which is held in by a snap ring down here. And that is this gear. So we have a new one of those. So let's put this in the press. We'll try to get this bearing off first. That should slide right off. We'll go from there. Slides right off. Alright, let's take this back over to the bench. I'll take that off and set it like this. I'll take this off and set it like that. It's important to remember how it goes back on. Back to the old snap rings. Yes. Oh, that came off nice. Oh, there's a washer too. Don't forget the washer. And a needle bearing. That in there. Should have replaced that bearing, but it didn't occur to me until just now. We'll press a new bearing on that side, and then we're done there. And that side of it is done. That side's done. This side's left. A gear and a snap ring. This guy and another gear and a snap ring and a bearing. I couldn't see a difference as to which way this went, so I just went an arrow pointing toward the bearing to help me remember. I don't know if it matters but we're not going to risk it. So we'll press the bearing off. Then we will take the snap ring out. Then that gear will come off. Then we'll pull the other snap ring off, and that doohickey will come off. Snap ring out, and then the last gear will come off. Reassembly time. We have our new shaft. We're going to put everything back on. First up is the needle cage. I like to put a little bit of that transmission fluid on there before I do it. Slide that gear on there. Tabs are going toward me. Then a washer. Then a snap ring. It's really stubborn, but we get it on there and it seats nice and firm in there. Then we put the doohickey on there. I got that little arrow facing toward the bearing like I did last time. Another snap ring goes in there with a very satisfying click once it gets in the groove. There we go. Then, freeze frame. I'm about to mess up. So I'm putting this needle cage on right after that snap ring. There's supposed to be a washer there. This washer, I don't see that yet. I'm about to in the next step and say that I messed up, but that washer needs to go against that snap ring before the needle cage goes on there for that bearing. Needle cage on there and a bearing. Slips right on. Then we have a washer and we have our final snap ring. Once we get that on, I'm going to put the bearings on both sides of the shaft and set them on the press. We're going to press both in at the same time. Perfect. I got a little raceway just to give it that little extra nudge. Now I messed this up. There is a washer on that one. So I have a bearing, and I have a snap ring, and then I have a washer. You see it there? Yeah. Then I have the gear, and then I have another snap ring and no washer. There's always a washer on a snap ring. Missed it. I'm gonna pop this bearing back off, pull that snap ring back off, pull this gear back off, throw that washer in there, it's over on the bench, and put all that back on. There we go. Yep. Now it's seated right. The parts box is empty. That's a good sign. And we have all new gears and some shafts and everything all built and ready to go in. So that's the whole upper side of the transmission. The only thing I didn't do is these two. But really, the transmission's so easy to pull out. I can always do these. I just want to make sure my noise is gone. So we'll put that back together as is. I'm going to clean this up and start setting everything back into position. And I just got called in for dinner. So I'm going to pick this up tomorrow. Good place to stop. I figure I'll leave it tilted up like that and get any fluid that's left in there, just get that to drain right out overnight. So the next day, we got it cleaned out. We're ready to go. Let's put it back together. We're gonna put the idler shaft and the reverse shaft in together as a unit first. And it's just gonna fall into position. Just fall into position. Like so. Yes, perfect. Next up is the input shaft. Uh-oh. My bench may not be high enough. I don't think we're high enough. Careful, there's a seal there, I don't want to hurt it. Yep, I'm hurting the seal. Okay, hold on, we gotta reposition. Alright, let's see what that does. Let me get this in there now. Yep, past the seal. I gotta lift this up a little bit. Which means lifting this up a little bit. Oh my gosh. There it goes, okay. There, fell right down into position. There we go. The pins go toward the input shaft. So see there's flat, someone marked it with green there. Green is away, and the pins where they fit inside the drum are toward the input shaft. Okay. So now on this transmission, this is tight. Oh, wait, we're missing a piece. We're missing this guy. How could we forget about that guy? That just slips in behind it. There we go. This guy. That just slips in right there. That would have been a heck of a thing to forget. So when we're done, this, and most of that, except for this gear, is all brand new. So if my noise continues, we're down to pretty much this, these bearings, this, and the snorkel. It'll be interesting to know if I fixed it or if I have to tear it apart a second time. At the other side of the transmission, it's time to clean it up. And boy, they used a lot of that, which is good because I'm going to use just as much, if not more. Let me get this all cleaned up, cleaned out. Clean. Now we're going to put a bead of Permatex gasket maker high torque all along here. Good healthy bead on there. Alright, let's set her back on. Dowel. Just gotta get that lined up. That's good. There we go. There we go. Yes. It is seated. Okay. Excellent. Get all of our bolts in place. We're going to reinstall this shifter here just to make sure that everything is copacetic inside that transmission. It works. Okay, we've run it through all the gears. I'm going to take these back off, set them aside, and we're going to torque all of our bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Now that I'm satisfied that everything is lined up internally with this. Someone has stolen my impact. Oh, it was me. I found it. Oh, no, it wasn't me. Someone really did. And they took the battery out of it. We are good. All right, my guests have arrived for dinner, so I'm gonna take a break for tonight. But that'll give that plenty of time to cure. We'll put that back together the right way tomorrow. Let's rebuild our shifter here. First thing we're gonna drop on there is our little gear. It's that dot. We wanna make sure that's facing up. And it'll only fit one way because the master spline is on the back there. And we have these two guys. Again, we have two dots. Those are going to be on each side of that dot. And we're going to put it on this post, and it'll only go one way because of the master spline. Like so. And then we're going to just drop that down in here. Once we get it lined up, that is. There we go. Now you see, we're not in high gear, so they aren't seated fully, but we can tell that it's going to seat when we shift it to the right gear. And then we have this guy. Flange goes down, and again it only fits one way because of the master spline. Okay, this is going to go down and touch that, and we have to put a spring there, but see, I'm stuck up on a tooth right there. I don't really want that. So I'm just going to put this guy on there. Alright, so now I've shifted into gear. There's our dots, they're lined up. Put that guy back in. That's sitting down in the thing. And now we can put this gear in there. Gear, spring. There we go. Alright. That back off, and I've already cleaned up this mating surface pretty good. So now we grab the cover. There's our other side. Clean that nut gasket surface up nice and clean. Now we're going to put a bead of our sealant all around there. And on we go. Tighten those to 12 foot-pounds. Bell crank is next. This little pin guy goes towards the transmission. And we just line that up with the master spline. And we put the nut on it. And we're going to torque that nut down to 18 foot-pounds. Are you kidding me? My bell crank just snapped. I have it set to 18 foot-pounds. I am very unhappy. So I'm going to need a new bell crank. So I guess we'll pick this up when that's here. We're going to take this stuff out, and I'm going to put it back in the machine, the transmission back in the machine, because I can do that now, and I can rebuild this while it's in there. So at least I have something to do today while I wait for the parts. So when we pick this back up, it'll be in the machine, but the procedure is exactly the same. So let's do that. We are back. Got the transmission in the machine now, but you see, I could still access that part. The last piece we need to do on this whole thing. where we snapped off that bolt. But I got some new parts in. There we go. And we've ordered the wrong parts. I meant to order this. I ordered the part that attaches to this. I don't know. But I already know my mistake and ordered the actual part. And I've switched that and the O-ring over to it. So now we are ready to start installing it. Finally. Oh my gosh. And the shifter, bell crank, whatever they want to call it, goes on. Oh, she's stiff. I got the new one. I didn't put the old one back on. But I might have to coax it a little bit. And a new nut goes in place. We're not going to torque that one this time. Oh no. We're going to tighten it down until it feels right. Oh. I'd say that's good. Right about there. I'm not pushing that. It has a lock, nylon locker on it, so it's not like it can loosen up or anything. But with that, I can shift it through the gears. Let's see, all the way forward is high gear. Yeah. One back. Low gear. Yeah. One more. Neutral. Yeah. One more. Reverse. And the last one is park. By George, everything shifts right. It should be good. Alright. Let's get our shift selector, gear indicator, sensor thinger. Let's get that put in there. Not really that complicated, this guy. We stick it on there and line it up with the groove. And we have our goofy shaped washer and a circlip. Like so. I was so excited about putting the machine back together, I never did an outro when I was done with part 2 putting the transmission together. But one thing real quick, obviously the machine's back together, ignore that. I went through all that work putting that new arm on there. I had it on backwards. That clip has to go on the back side of it. I point that out in part 3, but if you're in part 2, before I wrap up the video, you're gonna wanna know that. But yeah, we're gonna take it up next week with part 3, which is putting the transmission back in there. Then we're gonna take it on a test drive all next week. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every viewer and every subscriber. Everything that I do with this Pro XP, I throw it on a playlist so you can check them out. I've done all kinds of projects with this machine. All kinds of projects. If you'd like to join the channel, be a supporter, kind of build us from the ground up, Patreon, you can join YouTube, whatever suits your fancy there. Really appreciate the support. But thanks again for watching. I hope to see you here for another video on 3-Day Weekend.